is Rewired. I'm Jeff Cook.
I'm Katie Whitlock.
Katie, we're talking about Enneagram types and knowing yourself today. But since we're new, I got a set of get to know ya questions. I assume you have a go-to music style, for example. What's your go-to music?
I listen to anything I can sing along to. So I don't listen to a lot of rap. I don't listen to a lot of hip hop. Although I do really like them, I just don't listen to them that often. But my music, like in the car when I'm falling asleep and I'm driving and I have to stay awake, I listen to Disney songs because I know all the words.
Perfect. What was the last Disney song you sang along to?
Whatever the last one in the playlist was. It was probably something from Mulan. It was when they were marching.
What's your favorite type of vacation?
Ooh, I love a beach vacation. My vacation has to include good food. I am a food snob. So even like resort food, even if it's good, don't care. Like I want to go to a nice restaurant. I think there's traveling and then there's vacations. And I like vacations. I do like traveling, but then I always feel like I need a vacation afterwards.
I'm the opposite. I want to go to historic places and see stuff. Beach vacations make me nuts.
Yeah.
But you're a foodie. What's your favorite cuisine?
Okay, anything Asian, which I know is a huge category, but any of it. Like Chinese, Japanese, Indian. I cook a lot of Indian at home. Like anything Asian is my favorite.
So you're also a wine
Yeah.
Yeah. Does wine normally pair well with Asian cuisine?
No. This is like so painting with a broad brush that it's like not true. But typically wine is more like European food, right?
Sure.
Asian food is more like sake or beer or like even like whiskey or something. But that's like typically what was made. There's something in the beverage community called what grows together goes together. So any drink that can be made from like the native plants of a place probably is going to go well with the cuisine of that place.
Sure.
So if a country doesn't kind of naturally grow grapes, wine doesn't really typically go with their cuisine. So they do more.
That's real interesting.
They do other stuff. But anyway. Okay, you have to answer these questions too, by the way.
I'm a big Indian food fan, and it pairs well with gin, which is not native to Asia, but you know, you get the British trade company down there, and apparently they made it work. So
yeah, well, it's all the like the florals and the herbs and stuff in the gin.
Oh, I guess that's true.
I mean, kind of makes me.
What's your ideal podcast that's not around the circle or an Enneagram related pod?
Does it have to be a pod? Can I say an audiobook? Does it need to be a podcast? Sure. I really like history as well, so I like history podcasts. And I like the genre of podcasts where they explain things that you don't know or that you know but other people get wrong. So they're like, you know, correcting like misconceptions about history or something like that. I like those kind of podcasts.
Bang. Yeah. Are you a history nerd when
I love
audiobooks then?
Yeah. Yeah.
I fall asleep to history books.
Are you serious? I'm not that nerdy. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
That's it. You sing Disney songs
well,
instead.
Right, exactly, apparently. Right. What kind period of history?
Well, in order to fall asleep, I like go through massive library of Civil War stuff, but this is because I know it all already and it'll put me to sleep.
Right. Yeah.
Best book I've read, which I imagine you would enjoy, or you may have actually seen, is recently was The History of the World in 6 Drinks. Have you seen this?
Yes. I haven't read it, but I've had a lot of people tell me that it's really good. Didn't they make a show about that too?
They may have. I could see them. Maybe. It would have translated easily into that.
I might have made that up. So what are the drinks? It's tea, it's coffee, wine, beer, Coca-Cola.
Spirit, and then spirits.
And just spirits in general.
The writer wants to say that the beginning of human civilization begins with beer. That fermentation actually gets people to stay in the same spot so that they can hang out for a minute.
That's crazy.
So that they stop doing hunter-gatherer and start growing wheats and barley so that they can make beer. Last question. What type of people inspire you?
Ooh, I have always been inspired / jealous of people who are not afraid to make other people dislike them. So I have people who are not afraid to disagree with somebody to their face. People who don't feel the need to adjust themselves based on what you like. They just carry themselves in a way that I have never related to.
Yeah.
And so that has always inspired me.
That's a good answer.
What about you?
I'm very, very attracted to people who have a combination of self-sacrificialness and intelligence. When somebody enters that space, that's like the most attractive person for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to do the hard thing, but are incredibly thoughtful about it. Those are inspirational people to me.
So that's something like similar to yourself, whereas I said something like different for me. Where do you think that comes from in you?
Yeah, you're saying that right. Just for new folks, I'm an Enneagram 1,
Mm-hmm.
Kay's an Enneagram 3. I think it does come from the fact that I see the places I lack the highest virtues of my type, and so I aspire to that, both in shoring up my cognitive side and just being very attracted to those who do things at cost to themselves. All right, so I got a story for you.
Okay.
So you may not have noticed this, but I live 2 blocks from one of the best music schools in the world. I know a lot of people who spend a lot of time studying music under fluorescent lights in a really old 1960s kind of crappy building, actually. And there's something about knowing music and knowing music types, being able to study music at that level. I've also, because of this music school, they will bring in musicians from around the world for a single jazz fest every year. And you'll see some of the greatest musicians who have ever lived have come through our town. But sometimes you'll just see the 68-year-old, just grizzled, that trumpet case has seen some miles, dude. And that guy also knows music. But these are 2 different types of knowing. You know, you can know things cognitively, you can know things through study, but then you, like that 68-year-old jazz musician who has played, you know, every night for the last 20 years with a martini in his hand and hasn't gone to bed before 4 a.m. You know, that's a different kind of knowing jazz music. And I imagine we could talk about all these things. I assume you could say, you know, about wine, but then there's people that I imagine you've met who know
wine.
about wine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
When coming to Enneagram, this has been a reflection for me recently of the difference between knowing your number and knowing your number. And so often in any type of personality typing system, you jump in and as best you can, you kind of swim around and I'm a Capricorn. That's my number. Isn't that right?
Right.
We talked about different types of music, different types of food, but then there's like truly knowing your type. And that's what I wanted to ask you about today. When you come to knowledge of your Enneagram type, what comes to your mind first about like actually knowing your type when you've actually like, you know, gotten the jolt, when you've felt rewired, dare we say,
Right.
You know?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is something that I heard somebody say at some point. Some Enneagram teacher was saying, I'm never gonna know your number like you know your number. Like they weren't a 3. I forget what they were because I forget who it is. But they were like, all I can do when I teach about 3s is listen to all the 3s I've talked to in my life and try to make some amalgamation of their experience, right? And I've talked to a lot of 3s. I do know 3s pretty well, but I've never lived as a 3, right? And so what their point was, you know, I'm here to teach Enneagram, but if anyone has an experience about your number that you want to share, like you saying it is going to be better than me just telling the room about 7s, right? Like if we have a 7 in the room who wants to talk, please raise your hand, because the way you talk and how that story comes out of you is going to be so much more helpful to teach people about 7s than even if I just said the exact same words up here, right? Because we want to listen to it through your number. So I think there was this switch where I talk about as you go through your Enneagram journey, there's a switch from where Enneagram is just trivia for you and it's like fun. And that's like where you want everybody in your life to know Enneagram and you want everybody to read the book and know all these things. And that's where it's so fun. And then there's this switch where it kind of settles into your bones a little bit. And I'm going to connect those two things just by saying, I think for me, the switch was realizing that anything I say, even if it's not explicitly about threes, can teach people about threes because I know what it is to be a three better than any teacher on the planet who's not a three because they're not a three, right? So realizing that you actually already have a story to tell and not needing to be like, oh, well, I can't talk about threes because I don't know that much about threes. I haven't been here that long. Like anything you say is going to be good. I have a friend who like I think is a 6, but they don't know they're a 6. But anything they say to me, I use it to inform my teachings about 6s because they just live it out. You know what I mean?
I think that's a stellar answer.
What I want to say, so speaking of French, going back to the beginning, there's 2 verbs in French. Do you speak French at all?
I do not.
Okay, good, because then you won't know if I get this wrong. There's savoir and there's connaître. That's not how you pronounce that word, but and they both mean to know. But one of them is just like, I know this because it's a fact that I learned. Like, I know my address, right? I know that person's name. The other one you can only use in specific situations because it's like it's like the feeling type of knowing. It's like I feel it, I know it. But like that's what it feels like to me, switching from I know this because I learned it into realizing that you actually knew it the whole time because you've been living it your entire life and being able to like share that with other people. So it's like giving yourself permission to know already.
I've never done this exercise explicitly, but like looking back on, your own history and saying, where do you see the spots where your type really materialized in your past before you actually knew it?
Right.
So like I oversaw a funk band that had 8 people in it, and I would produce every week what I called a managerial update, which was like this 2-page document of all the details that everybody needed to know about what we were doing in the future. And this is my oneness comes out all over these sorts of documents in terms of control, in terms of like thinking repression, in terms of like my desire to get everybody on the same page and moving forward. And like those sorts of elements as you're entirely right. You already have a story. And just because you just learned you're a fish doesn't mean that you don't have fish experiences.
Yeah, you can immediately start talking about being a fish if you want to.
Yeah.
As soon as you know the word fish, you can go.
I love the word, is it savoir?
Savoir.
I assume it produces the word savor at some level. And there's a good epistemological word that like there's a difference between like tasting something and knowing what the taste is and having the ability to savor something and pull out like the flavors and details and understanding. And knowing your type seems to me more in that spirit.
Yeah.
In a past conversation you and I had about objectivity and subjectivity, the move from just cognitive understanding of your type to something that is more emotional, intuitive, like the blending of all of that. We obviously talk about the centers quite a bit in Enneagram world, but using the centers to actually know about yourself and your type is likewise a move of what it looks like to understand your type. The thing that's interesting about Enneagram, because it's glasses through which you see everything else, when you look at the Enneagram itself, you're also looking through those glasses. And so part of knowing your type actually is going to get informed quite a bit by the type itself.
Right.
I
think like our episode that we had last week where we eventually were just like, we just look at the Enneagram differently. Like we look at what this is and what it means to study the Enneagram differently. I saw it as very, well, what's different about us, because that's the only thing that's workable, right? Mm-hmm. If we share something in common, I don't really care because, like, whatever. And you saw much more of a holistic, like, we all think, we all feel, we all do. So what's our connection to those things, right? Even just that, like,
yeah,
that is something. I think when you really know your Enneagram number, what happens is that no matter how much work you do, tomorrow you're going to do something and you're like, I did that thing again. Like, it's just in you all the time.
When you actually know.
When you actually know. Yeah. I also think when you know your number, it switches from, because I hear in my classes I teach, a lot of people who are new will be like, oh, I do this. Is that a 7 thing? Like, they're definitely a 7, right? They're like, oh, I do this. Is this a 7 thing? I'm like, well, if you do it, then it is, because you're a 7, right? It doesn't mean that all the other 7s do it, but like, yeah. And so you can watch people learn how to stop asking the teacher if this is a 7 thing, and gaining the confidence to know 7 well enough to know where it comes from in them, and like say that this is a 7 thing, right? Because I know how it connects to the core of 7 in me, and not every other 7 needs to do it, but that doesn't mean it's not a 7 thing for me, So
I'm never going to know your number the way you know your number.
Right, exactly. So what do you think when people first come to the Enneagram and they're first learning their number, and let's say they know their number now for sure, but they're at the very beginning of it, what do you think is the first thing that people should learn about in the Enneagram?
Yeah. So part of me bringing this up as a topic is I really want to get my head around exactly this. And so I suppose we started our book with knowing 4 things about yourself, really. What do you want? How do you get it? How do you solve problems? And how do you connect with others? I think that if I was going to spend a day with someone, I would really want to focus on those 4 questions.
Yeah.
They're overlapping and they expose a lot of what's going on within us. And I suppose I'd want to sit there. But the very next step I'd have after saying you really need to talk to other people about this is I'd want to talk about their shadow, because their shadow is where you actually feel your number. And I want you to have an intuitive experience. Body type that I am, I really want you to feel it. I want you to feel
that sucks.
that number. Yeah, right.
So
Let me tell you how awful you are at 3s.
For people who don't know, what is your shadow? What are we looking at when we look at our shadow?
We're looking at a combination of your fears, the things you avoid, the idols that you elevate in places that replace things that otherwise would be healthy for a type like yours, but you put forth like cotton candy experiences. Your passions, or what some people call the sins, and your fixations. Those are the 5 things that I associate with the shadow. And they kind of work as dominoes, that it really is, your fears are your first step towards your shadow. And if you can name your fears, you can do quite a bit of work. So I have a fear of being corrupted, and that doesn't seem bad, but it has power. And a lot of times, because I avoid being to blame, I will elevate an idol, which is my goodness, my rightness, my being right in the world. And when I elevate that, it replaces the true sense of goodness that I ought to experience. And when it really takes a hold, that idol, that's when the sin comes in. And the sin is anger. For ones, it's wrath at self. And so my blaminess can get up, and that can move into my head as a fixation, which is hypersensitivity for ones. And that's a doom loop, where I have hypersensitivity, anger itself, hypersensitivity, anger itself. And that's what disintegration looks like. It's not moving to your stress number. That disintegration looks like the passions and your fixations building on one another. But.
Yeah, Suzanne Stabile will tell you, when you're really unhealthy in your number, it feels awesome. Like, it feels not awesome, like, oh, my life is going so well, but it's comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
it's comfortable to feel angry for you, maybe sometimes. Like, talk about that a little bit,
sometimes.
right? But
I think that's entirely true, especially, so what I've heard from her, especially on the low side of security, I think that's a place of power and comfort and disintegration. I don't experience a lot of comfort in hypersensitivity. In fact, it's very uncomfortable. And that's why the anger kind of pops for me. So I'm comfortable with anger, but too much anger itself is kind of like, it's like listening to very, very aggressive music very, very loudly for too long.
yeah.
And it can get to the spot where you're just tired in a different kind of way. So
Yes.
how about yourself? But you feel okay in terms of, so for threes, the self-deceit and vanity would replace those in my mind in terms of that cycle. But would you say that's a comfortable space?
So anymore, no, because I do think self-deceit is one of the vices or the passions or the sins or whatever you want to call it. That's like, once you break it the first time, and I'd have to think about this with all the other 8 numbers, so I won't say this only happens with self-deceit, but like, I have seen it in my life. Once you break it the first time, it's hard to keep lying to yourself that hard. You know what I mean? Like, you just have to get past the first time, and then it's actually pretty hard to sink that deeply into self-deception again, right? So,
once you realize somebody's a liar, then you're like, wait a second.
Yeah. And like, once I realized that I was not this person I thought I was, you're never gonna like be delusional enough again to think that you are. It shows up in little ways, but not in like the overarching way that it used to run my life, right? But I will say, so before I broke that barrier and realized I was not this person I thought I was and all the things, it felt awesome to be so deep in self-deceit that I got to be whoever I wanted to be. So that's when I was meeting new people, and people liked me because I was charismatic and like fun. And it actually isn't, it wasn't even like people meeting me. It'd be like I joined a new club and within a year I was like the president or something, or so it wasn't even like actual social interactions. It was just like I got to be at the top of the things, the clubs I joined, the grades I was getting, all the things. Like, that was awesome. It felt awesome to join something and have people immediately think that you should be near the top, right? Now I know that what I was sacrificing was like actual connection with people and connection with myself, and not letting myself be who I actually was the entire time, all the things. But to answer the actual question, yeah, it felt awesome, right? Yeah. To like walk through the world in this space where, because I have no loyalty to myself, I can be whatever I want to be at any given point, which is deceptively freeing way to walk through the world. It's not really freeing, but it feels very freeing. You watch other people get so stuck in things and you're like, that could never be me. Surprise, it's you the whole time. But
knowing your type, I mean, this will be next level, but you'll be familiar with this. 3, 7s, and 8s will generally across the board, especially older, more mature, 3, 7s, and 8s will talk about a time that they really crashed. And that's what I'm hearing there. It's like you can live in that space until you get exposed, but exposure is going to be almost a violent experience at that level. Yeah. And that's what I suppose what I'm hearing, because I imagine 7s and 8s would have a similar, well, I love living in this space.
Yeah. Why would I not want to be here? Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, of course. Like 7s, you're telling me I need to touch all that negative stuff. Why would I ever do that? Right? Like, you're making your life harder because you want to be sad all the time. I'm not going to do that. Yeah. Right?
Exactly.
8s, why would I slow down? Why would I be less? Why would I, all these things? Like, all your problems are because you do that.
that experience, that's knowing yourself. And that's knowing your type. Like having those experiences of where the shadow actually does like true damage and you felt it and can name it. That seems to me, unfortunately, that like I think we actually know our type best first. It also produces motive from that spot.
Yeah. I also think when you know your number and your type, when you look at yourself, you start to see two things. So before I knew the Enneagram, I just looked at myself and I saw myself. All the things I wanted, all the things I did, my personality traits, it was all me. Now I look at myself and I see me, and then I see it covered by my number. And the more I learn the Enneagram, the more I can say, the easier and the more often I can say, well, I think that's just my 3 talking. I don't think that's actually me. Like, if it was really me, I'd be able to admit that I just want to stay on the couch today. I think my 3 is making me feel bad that I'm not. So I start to see like 2 separate parts of myself almost. Do you relate to that at all?
I don't. I want to ask you a bunch of questions on this because this was something that came up when I was listening to your conversation with Kristen Messigi on the Great Life Uninhibited podcast, which you should go find.
Hi, Kristen.
This was a primary question that I wanted to ask you because I don't relate to that, but I don't know if I'm blind to it. And so I wanted to ask about oneness on this front because I was like, this may be invisible to me. The idea, so there's a basic idea that comes from the etymology of the word personality. Persona is a mask. That's like that's where the word comes from, of personality. And so often when talking about Enneagram type, many people want to put forth the idea of the persona as what your Enneagram type is. Yeah. And the thing I wrestle so hard, and this is my oneness looking at the theory and having a problem with the theory, is I don't relate to the persona side. I feel like I'm 100% authentic most of the time to most people. And so I don't relate to the persona thing. But it may be the case that that's invisible to me. You know what I mean there?
Well, and I think it looks different. It's not... So for 3, it very much is a persona, right? That's the whole thing with 3s. Like, of course, it's a persona.
Yeah.
I think for 1s, it would be more like, who would I be if I didn't have my inner critic or whatever you call it, right? Telling me that nothing was good enough. Like, do I really think this is not good enough, or is my oneness telling me that this is not good enough? That's the separation I think I see in 1s. And like when 1s start asking themselves, is this good enough? Is this good enough? Like sometimes, because I know how hard this is, right? So I don't want to say like, oh, they get it eventually. But like I have seen some 1s be able to eventually say, okay, it's fine and I'm moving on, because if I don't move on, I'll think about it too much, right? But there is something in you that's like, this is good enough. And then you have to move on before the 1 comes in and says, no, it's not. Anyway, respond to that. What do you think about what I just said right there?
I unfortunately say that I don't understand 2s, 5s, and 8s the most. And the more I'm learning about Enneagram, the more I think I don't understand 1s the most, because my personality overwhelms that space in my struggles, and I'm not as able to see other 1s and how they engage their oneness. So as you're speaking, theoretically, I hear exactly what you're saying. And I'm like, I don't know that that's me in terms of how I experience inner criticism. But I definitely think that could be true of some folks. Like I didn't have an abusive parent. And so I don't have the voice of an abusive parent in my head, or an abusive teacher, or however that works for some folks. I think you do, you have your finger on something that's correct, that when talking about persona, that's the realm that it would exist in. For the 1. It would be something like being compliant to your superego. Yeah. And I think that's helpful. So.
And I think the thinking repression makes it hard. So speaking of Kristen, yesterday on her Instagram story, she put something that, like, ever so often you read something from another coach and you're like, oh my gosh, that's really good. So I don't think it was hers, but she put something on her story. She said, fear isn't bad when it just feels scary, whatever. Fear becomes bad when you feel like it's your voice of reason. Like when what you're really feeling is fear, but what you think you're hearing is a voice of reason. And she was saying for sixes, that's why sixes have a hard time recognizing their fear, because to them it just feels right. Like, of course I would, right? I'm not scared. This is reasonable to think of these things, right?
Yep.
And I think in some way, like for ones, maybe it's hard for you to disconnect. Like you hear other people talk about this like bad part of themselves that just makes their life worse. Like it makes them think their life's better, but it really just makes their life worse. And now I see my 3 versus I see me. And maybe there's some level of like your oneness feels like a higher calling or something. Like it feels like the good thing that everybody should be aspiring to. So why would I like drop it? That's not exactly what I want to say. Does that hit anything in you?
What I hear there is knowing your type. To circle to the like just kind of the big topic here, knowing your type really means having a full body experience of your motive. And that's emotional in nature, and that's analytic in nature, and that's intuitive in nature. And you like know your motive at those levels because your motive colors all those things. For me in that space, I have come to this conclusion. I may be wrong, but this is where I'm at. I'm not getting rid of my motive. No. My motive is me. And so I suppose I think of a person, I do think it is. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that motive is so bedrock. Desire, I think, is so bedrock to who you are that it's almost inextractable from who you are. I think it is inextractable from who you are. Even to want to be somebody else is itself a want coming from your motive, So the question isn't how do I get rid of my motive? For me, the question is, what does it look like for me to be the healthiest person I can be given this motive? What's my motive look like at its healthiest? And so like the places I connect most to people in the most beautiful ways are inextractable from my motive. Like, so when the heart's message, for example, washes over you, there's a reason it's your heart's message. It's because it's speaking to your heart, know, and rightly so. It's like, this is your core, and you are bathing in this truth about yourself and living in that space, your healthiest self, your motive, functioning at its highest. These are, I think, the best targets. And I'm in the minority, I know, on this, by the way.
No, you're actually, okay, so I'm like having a reaction. So this is blowing my mind right now. So when you said, my motive is me, and I said, is it? And you went, yeah. That, I like started to get a little panicky. Like my heart rate went higher just there like 30 seconds ago, because I think this is maybe the independent stance, but like, what do you mean that I don't get to choose who I am? Yeah. Like, of course I do. Of course I can separate. Like I didn't pick that. I didn't pick to be a 3, I didn't choose to be born like this and to have this motive. And what do you mean you're telling me that you think I just have to work with it instead of finding a way to like make this new enlightened version of yourself that does not feel obligated to respond to that thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's actually making me a little panicky, and I don't want that to be true, because that means that nature or nurture or God or whoever you think made us like pick something for me, and I don't get to have any say over whether it gets to be a part of me or not.
Yeah.
So I don't like that, but I actually do think that you are probably correct.
This is, you're hitting on a foundational matter for me. I think we should absolutely pick this up next time. So before we sign off, what do you think? Like, where's your mind go to set us up?
I think, so like when I was first starting this, what I really wanted from people when I asked, you know, how do you go to level 2? What I wanted was do this and this and this and this. And at the end of step 7, you'll know, right?
Yeah.
And what I know now is the answer is you just have to keep going until you have accumulated enough time in the Enneagram. And one day you look around and you just are there. Like all of a sudden you're there. But you just have to keep showing up and going to the next class or listening to the podcast or talking to people about it or doing all the things. And it won't happen until it happens, which sucks because for me, I'm like, well, that's boring. Give me the actionable steps, but you just have to keep doing it, right? So
such is life.
Yeah, it's a time thing. It's not a action thing, you know.
This is where the idea of savoring, to bring it full circle, I think is wonderful in terms of like sometimes you hit on that thing that isn't just about the exercise anymore. Yeah. It becomes, this is the thing I really enjoy. Like, I mean, to be frank, like I invited you to do these recordings because I really enjoy this.
Yeah.
And want to engage it from a different perspective, which I think you bring. And that's like, it's more of a delight than anything.
Right.
And if you can get to that level, I suppose in any endeavor, then that's kind of the target.
Great.
Hey, guess what? You're a delight to talk to you.
You are. This is fun.
Somebody told me that if you look closely, you can see the color of another